welcome to the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. It is the 11th day of September. 2023. Of course, you all know this date, 9/11, 22 years ago. Of course, but good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Full casting this morning. We just heard from Paul Richards. We'll hear from Richard Ragubara Singh, Wendell Stephen. We got Ruben in the background. My name is Steve Khan, and we're going till 9 o'clock this morning. All right. Let's get straight into the WTs. If you're heading into Port of Spain, don't. It took me 25 minutes from RBC to the office this morning. 25 minutes. The roads are blocked off due to the opening of Parliament today. I don't know why they're blocking it off so early. So those that come into Port of Spain to drop off kids and do that, oh my God, I don't know what to tell you. But there is traffic in Port of Spain. There is no parking. I actually had to come up Edward Street. And that was just chaos. They're moving all the cars out of the way. All right. So, but traffic-wise, heading towards Piarco from Maloney, you've got some traffic. Trin City towards Uwe. Eastern Main Road approaching Makoya and Tunapuna, you've got some traffic. After you pass Uwe, you got some volume just after QREP heading into Port of Spain. Taking a look at the Solos, you head north. Let's head down San Fernando. Got nothing to tell you about. Rivulet Road is getting busy. Freeport to Sugar Gorners, you got some traffic. And then Charlieville towards the interchange, you've also got some traffic. All right. Taking a look at what's happening weather-wise. Yeah, it's a warm one already. As I opened the door this morning, it was absolutely warm. It is 27 degrees at Piarco International Airport, 28 at Crown Point, and pretty much what you're going to do is copy and paste yesterday, and you'll have today, right? Copy and paste. It was a scorcher yesterday. I thought I was living next to the sun, right? Like right next to it. It was that hot. Of course, yeah. So that's your weather for today, pretty much. I'm checking them temps across our listenership and tell you what they are. We're going to start out in Toronto. You're 16 and clear. Miami, 27 and clear. Orlando, clear and 25. New York, mostly cloudy and 21. Atlanta, mostly clear and 20. London, partly cloudy and 23. 23. Tampa, you're at 25. Washington, partly cloudy and 21. Los Angeles, LA, where are you? 21 and mostly clear. All right. So let me bring the guys in this morning. Oh, let me say hello to a few people on YouTube already. Let's start here. Let's go up here and see what we got. Oh, boy. Here we go. Oliver Man Warren, good morning to you. Heading out shortly to Mayaro, Rio Claro. All right. Trinity out in Boston. Have a safe week as well. Doreen Pierre. Pauline Buckmeyer, good morning. It is blessing to one and all from Florida. Ingrid Adams, Miss Ingrid out in Tucson, Arizona. Edwin Marshall, hope you enjoyed the weekend of cricket. Yeah, boy. Saturday was good. I didn't really watch yesterday's game. Let's see. Marcia Rock, good morning. Ray Ray out in West Palm Beach, Florida. Good morning. Ewart Ratchball, Rena Boodoo Jennings, good morning. And let me say good morning to you guys. What's happening? Don't come into town. Ms. Maloney, morning.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning, Steve. Morning, Paul. Good morning, Richard. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. And good morning, listeners and viewers all over the globe. A special good morning to our listeners in the UK, especially those out in Morocco, as we mourn your loss. Over 2,000 people thus far. And I that possibly will grow also, so very, very sad, very, very sad,
You felt it?
Huh?
You felt it?
Actually, no, but because where we are, I mean, Portugal is pretty close to Morocco, and I was intending to go to Morocco today. We had already booked to go to Morocco today, because we wanted to. I did say, remember, in my conversations earlier on, that when I go to Portugal, I will be going to Morocco and Spain, you know, but it's sad. And I actually messaged David Mohammed, who's in London, and he said he was going to Morocco. And I said, why? I said, you know you can't go. He said, what happened? And when I told him, David Mohammed was in shock.
Yeah, well, let's bring Paul in. Let's say good morning to Paul before we continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Good
morning, guys. Morning, everyone.
Traffic when you're coming in town, Paul?
No, I wouldn't be affected too much.
Oh my gosh.
But you're attending, not so, Paul? You're an attendee. You'll be escorted through the traffic.
I don't know how to be escorted through any traffic, but
what do you mean? You have a sticker for your car.
but that doesn't mean escort. Having a sticker doesn't mean
no, no, this is Senator Paul. Let him through.
It will mean that you're allowed to pass through. It doesn't mean you'll be escorted.
No. You're gonna be escorted. I know you know.
No.
You tell you that traffic. That traffic not moving.
You know. I know you know.
That traffic not moving at all.
He head of the independent bench. Let him through.
There is no head of the independent bench, sir.
I christening you that.
You could christen what you want. Like, where should be christening? You ain't christening.
Well, it's still clinging on, by the way.
I guess you'll find out later today.
Oh dear. Oh gosh. Well, a good question for today, Paul, is do you think that there'll be a reshuffle after this cabinet retreat that's taking place? Is it from today?
Yes, until Wednesday.
Yeah, I suspect a reshuffle is coming. So
but the smart thing is never to tell one person one by one, to tell everybody one time.
That's it.
When the leakers go out and leak, it done out already.
Exactly. Everybody know the same
so by the time, because my understanding is that you don't go in cabinet with no phone, you gotta leave your phone at the door.
Yeah. Even if some aspects of some PNM meeting, General Council, you can't go in with your phone.
So because people like to be texting people.
Yeah.
So when the boss man tell them X is the case and Y is the case, and he press go on his Facebook page, you're done out already, or you can say what you want. You're done out already because the release done prepared, and before you leave the meeting, the public don't know already. So you don't need to tell nobody.
Yeah. You don't need to feign being upset or whatever.
What would be upset for?
Some people could be upset,
Well, that's if there's any reshuffle.
Well, that's why it's a good poll for today. Do you think that there will be?
I think it's a good poll.
Reshuffle? Yeah.
I agree it's a good poll.
Yeah. After this retreat.
Or do you think there should be a reshuffle?
Nah, that's a better question. Do you think there should be? Yeah, we could do that one. You could type 30 o'clock today.
Yeah, don't type it up yet, though, but yes.
Why don't type it up yet?
Because you're going to put it up. We have our results to go. You can still.
Why would I put it up?
But we don't put up results. We just put up the poll.
We might as well. I don't know what's going on here. I can't give you the.
Today, of course, is also 9/11. So it's a day that a lot of people would remember. September 11th, 20. Was it 2001?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2001. I had actually just returned from the United States before that happened. I had come back earlier that
and I had planned a vacation the week after, and I still went. People say, what are you going there for? I said, well, it doesn't happen already, It ain't grand. I doubt very much it's going to happen next week or two.
Right.
What has happened already? So most people said, don't go. I remember my boss at the time told me, I forbade you from going. I said, but when I check my birth paper, my name is Richards. I don't see that your surname appears on my birth paper.
What would have been the surname?
Why would I say that?
But is the person alive, sir?
Yes, the person is alive.
Okay, well, I'll leave
I said, no, I'm going. He said, no, I cancel your vacation. I mean, okay, no problem. And I still went.
Were you with the state agency?
No. No, I was private sector media.
Oh, well then I think
when I came back, a memo was waiting for me that I never opened up to today. I don't know where it is.
I think I have an idea then, because
The
you
secretary
were
told
there
me.
for a lot of years.
The secretary told me that the boss sent you a memo because you didn't follow his instructions not to go to the US. So okay.
Okay. I can't understand why somebody would try to tell you not where not to go.
But thank you.
I can't even begin to understand that.
I said, no, I'm going. Said, no, your vacation is canceled. I said, okay, no problem. I still went.
Yeah. You're so from Longwood.
Long time. Long time.
Me too.
You could tell me not good, but I'm an adult though.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
It's too dangerous. Hear me, thanks for your concern, but I'm still going.
Yeah.
So a lot happened over the weekend. Kidnapping in Maraval. Thank God.
That's a weird story.
Released. Huh?
That's a weird story when I read it.
Very strange, but I'm so happy that it ended relatively quickly and without injury to the two parties, because I would hate to think that this scourge of kidnapping is rearing its ugly head again in this country.
Yes.
So
I know, climb down.
I'm glad that the people were released. I don't think the police had to intervene at that point. Investigations are continuing.
Yeah.
They released, and some congratulations to the people of Mova in the neighborhood who helped them to call the police and take off the binds on their hands and stuff like that, the tie straps on their hands, and and settle them down before the police were able to come. So,
that's
but I'm
quite
glad
an
that
ordeal. That's quite an ordeal for them for 24 hours. Quite an ordeal.
Yeah, but
I know
glad
exactly
because the longer they go on, the less likely they are to find the people and find the people alive.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that it ended very quickly. And I got the news like an hour and a half after it happened. I have friends who live not too far from there, and it's very strange that they went in and robbed them, and it's a very, very odd thing, because when they go in the kidnap, they go to kidnap.
Yeah. And they took 3 cars, not so?
Yeah.
So which means it would have been a group of people.
Clearly. And they said it was a gray car that dropped them off Friday night.
Yeah, very, very odd. Anyway.
We're glad that they're safe and they were checked out by the medical folks and they're okay. They're not staying at home.
Well, I could understand you want to be careful at this point.
I'd be paranoid, gallo.
Until the police get, and if the police get to the bottom of it, you will feel unsafe at home.
Yeah, of course you're unsafe. Look in QREP. QREP is getting very hot. A couple of girls who work in QREP was walking on the southern main road in a southerly direction. A car pulled up and a guy jumped out with a knife and tried to get one of them into the vehicle. And of course, both of them were screaming and screaming and screaming. This is at 11:30 in the evening.
In the day?
in
the evening, 11:30 in the night.
Oh, night.
And they screamed so much and they wrestled and whatever, and he managed to get away with, and then the individual stabbed her in the leg and jumped in the car and drove off.
Yeah.
QREP is just getting to be
QREP has had a reputation for a while, eh?
Well, I think QREP is just getting to be QREP all over. There's so many areas that experience. Look at this sad situation in Maloney where this young man, Kevin Baker, had an HDC contract to do some work in the area, and the extortionists, killers, try to extort. Apparently, there's a fee if you get a contract in the area. You have to pay these people. They demanded $20,000 in quotation tax from him. He refused, and they killed the young man.
Yeah, I read that story too. I can't begin to imagine how you could ask for $20,000 based on the story I read from a contract that is $90,000. You ought to be better. Better the young man just don't do it, which is what his mother had told him.
Well, I not even put in the amount of money in it. I put in the fact that you feel I have to pay any money anyway.
But
It could be $5
yeah,
is extortion.
yeah, people do that, you know.
This should amount to me as irrelevant as the police find, because apparently this is not an uncommon situation in those types of contracts.
And based on what I read, it's not the first time it happened to him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, you lose your son because he's working hard, and and don't want to
$1.
and don't want to accede to your illegal requests.
Yeah.
And they kill him.
And was it reported that the person who ordered it was somebody who's incarcerated too?
I don't know. I didn't see that being reported.
I think I read that.
Yeah, I read that in the paper.
Yeah, because he controlling these. You could imagine somebody in a jail cell controlling people who are outside free and moving about.
I don't have to imagine it. It's happening.
It's happening. And
We've heard the reports for years about the contacts between persons who are inside, and they're getting access to cell phones, and they're sending messages through social media encrypted in all kinds of ways. It wasn't reported that one of the recent hits in a couple of years ago was from inside the prison walls.
Yes.
And the hits that are unfortunately ordered on prisons officers from inside prison walls.
Yes.
So we do have to imagine it. It's happening.
Yeah.
The other good news. The police seem to be very consistent in their operations now. There's an operation called Blue Line that's been going on for some weeks now, and 22 more persons were arrested. They seized ammunition, guns, and drugs over the weekend. Retrieved stolen vehicles in the eastern, central, and southern districts and northeastern division. So they've been consistent in these exercises over the last couple of weeks. And every weekend we're getting a release that X amount of persons were arrested. The thing about it is that I'm hoping that these charges are able to stick, because the judiciary has said in response to Minister Hines' constant assertions that the judicial officers are granting bail too easily, is that the evidence coming before the courts is weak. You understand? Eyewitness is not the way to go. Master of the court, Christiane Morris, hadn't said so herself. She said this is what the judicial office could only work based on what is presented to them by the police.
Yeah.
That's the basis on which the decisions they make regarding bail or any other application of the law has to stand. It can't because the officer say so. I guess 50 years ago when a police officer says so, you could believe him unchallenged, or her. You understand?
True.
But now officers, and even with that said, the law is predicated on being able to provide evidence to support the allegations that are being made.
Yeah.
So saying somebody had marijuana and gun in the car and supplying evidence to prove it, that evidence that is not contaminated to that goes through the proper channels, is something else.
Yeah.
And people don't seem to want to understand that sometimes. They feel because the police accuse you of something, that's it, the end of conviction.
Yeah, you're guilty.
Yeah, people always have that presumption in the mind. That is not the way the law operates. Because if it happens to you and you are erroneously charged or accused, you would want the benefit of the process of law to go through properly.
That's true.
So people just jump out. It's pests. Well, they may or may not be pests or miscreants. I have no doubt that quite a few of them are, but there's a process to establish legally that they are worthy of being charged and convicted.
Yeah.
So I mean,
this weekend though, guys, was a good weekend for sports.
Yeah. Before we get into sports, let me just give folks a quick traffic update. If you're westbound, Churchill Roosevelt Highway at Macoya Lights, there's a bad accident at that intersection, so expect some traffic. That's at Mausica Lights. All right.
Mausica or Macoya?
Mausica.
Okay.
All right.
Mausica that's one by Price Smart, right?
Is it? Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we had a good weekend in sports. TKR, of course, had a very successful weekend.
Ooh, that was noise on Saturday.
And of course, in the US, Coco Gauff won her first US Open.
That was a good game.
19 years old. despite all the naysayers. And of course, yesterday, Angus Eve, Coach Eve, under a lot of pressure and a lot of criticism, changed up his team and won back-to-back matches and first time ever winning a match in El Salvador. So congratulations to all the sporting winners, especially Coach Eve, because I know he's been under pressure. You know, well done.
Yeah. Of course, with after 11 overs of spin. Boy. Morning, Richie Rich.
Good morning, guys. And good morning,
Morning.
to our listeners and viewers.
You're back out from Taruba. Wasn't that you I saw in cricket waving a Trini flag? Wasn't that you?
Nope.
Probably Vin Diesel is down here then.
I want to say something, but I know when they're going to jump down with truth.
Say it.
But it passing through my head. And it's just hilarious to even say, knowing what Wendell would think of. You know, I started getting some pain in my left big toe. I said, but like I have arthritis in my big toe, and I know what Wendell's going to recommend.
You're not going nowhere with that.
I better go buy chiropractic as well. I'll try that. I'll have it resolved.
No. Paul, you have it wrong. It's a Toya cracker.
I don't know why that image just flooded my head.
Come up to your head, eh? You ever take out and see something? That's on the bathtub. You just can't see it.
Yes.
Let's say good morning, good night to Wayne Ramsey. Nas. Is that Nas? Carol Guevara celebrated her birthday on the weekend. Carol, we didn't get a cake tonight. Wayne B, Wendy and James, Leah Joseph, Shireen Jack, good morning. Winston Jones, Anthony Tinto out in Canada, Jaron Joseph, Ronnie Voisin, CPT Singh, Roberta Etienne, and Mo Gaines out in Aruga. Thank you all for sending us messages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You know, you think you have problems in your country, and we do. You know, we are a developing country, and we have our challenges, but we have our accomplishments too. We're heading into the Republic just now. But I don't think when you look around the world, you just have to give thanks to Trinidad and Tobago. When you think of an earthquake that killed 2,000 people and counting, 2,400, 100 injured, light estimation, because they can't get to some areas.
Yes.
Some areas are blocked off. So much so that even the heavy lifting equipment can't get through. And people digging through dirt and debris with bare hands to try to get to people that they're hearing alive.
Mm-hmm.
People are talking to them from under debris. For days now, 2-3 days now, you have to say, thank God, you know.
Yes.
It's like...
And in a place that didn't have an issue for 150 years, eh?
Yeah, well, they said they had an earthquake, a really bad earthquake 60 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, but this one, I mean, I saw some videos of people in weddings and other areas just as the quake started and people running for their lives and buildings falling. And the scale of devastation is unfathomable.
Right.
It's like, what do you do? You know, I always say that's one of my worst fears, you know, being buried alive like that.
Yeah, and you notice when those things normally hit, they normally hit in the nighttime, you know. Earthquakes normally come at nighttime and it's dark.
We had a light earthquake at 5.1. We had a 5.1 on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I saw that.
And most people didn't feel it. You understand?
Yeah.
But to get to that level of quake and that level of devastation is like, are we ready for that? You know, we started to talk about building codes and stuff again. Yeah. We've been very, very lucky.
Yeah, well, Morocco, that area has a lot of old time buildings, eh? And would you believe it was the area that I was heading to? The same area.
I remember you saying that last week. I remember you saying that you're planning to do them. Yeah.
Yeah, the property that we were going to stay at, half of it collapsed.
You'd be the most recognized Caribbean correspondent live in Morocco for all the islands in the Caribbean.
Assuming that I lived.
You'd live. We have protection on you.
You know, it really, I have to tell you, it really was scary when
people who die have no potential. Is that the logical?
I said protection.
Oh, so the people who died had none. Okay.
Well,
Paul,
well,
you see where you start? You see where you start? Because that's an age-old argument. I have it here with this person, Gershwin, all the time. Oh God, he just say, if God was this, he would have do that. Oh, he's carrying on at a rate.
or the God that saw omnipotent that could have stopped all that and didn't stop it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know the argument.
He said God can't be all powerful and all good at the same
Well,
time.
there are always excuses that people of faith make for why he does what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an illogical argument to raise because faith is not logical.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not based on logic. It's not supposed to be logical.
Well, that's what, well, I just
It's
said
supposed to be,
that. I
it's
said
supposed to be
faith.
faith.
I said faith is not logical.
If you can get the logic out of it, what's the point of having faith?
Yeah, so you can't argue logic with people of faith.
No, we're going to tell you we believe, and that's it. You have to take that and put it up and smoke it.
Yeah, and they will always have an excuse. It's his will.
And then you will talk about evolution and in the same part. And talk about and we always talk about the universe is 13.5 billion years ago, and then you set up a new telescope and it tell you it was wrong for 100 years. So
yeah, because that's what science is.
Richard has to be a big fan.
No. Let me make a point, Wendell. That's what science is.
Faith
is belief without proof. And no, faith is certainty without proof, whereas science is proof without certainty. Science never says anything is certain. Huh? Science is always,
in other words, scientists, and I'm a scientist of sorts, so I know for a fact. And a lot of it is based on some presumptions that have no ground. It's just some presumptions based on human ideology and information. So every theory is based on presumptions, basic presumptions.
We're going into a never-ending discussion, right? It never ends.
But that's the fundamental difference. People of faith are certain without proof, whereas people of science are not certain. They're risking until better proof comes along.
Here are one of the things that I subscribe to, and this is what a lot of people subscribe to. How could you love someone you've never seen or don't know for sure that they exist, and people who you've seen and you are wrong, you don't love them? That's a part of me that kicks in when it comes to this argument, right?
Well, that's just human. That's human beings, I guess.
Well, yeah.
And my argument is
that the people right around them because
the argument is based on what your definition of love is.
Yeah, because they have more knowledge of the people around them.
Because even the argument about love presumes love.
More apparent. Human beings are very imperfect people, huh?
Exactly. Luis Rubiales has resigned as president of the Spanish Football Federation. Finally. He finally realized I can't continue my work.
Well, they fired the other guy, so I don't think he would have had a choice.
The female player has brought a legal complaint against him, and he finally realized after talking to his father and his family that he cannot stay in that position. I mean, Louis, you're a little crazy.
I'll tell you something, though. Based on the other videos that I've seen in the dressing room and so on, I think something is amiss. I think he gets set up good and proper.
Nobody didn't set him up because nobody didn't force him to kiss nobody.
Paul, they are. I don't know if you read what I read.
Allegations that they may be involved.
Are linked to this, because the current head of Spain. You didn't read that part of the story.
What does that have to do with a man in charge of his own agency deciding to plant a kiss on a female player in full glare of the world?
Because
what does that have to do with it?
Okay, if you
watch, force him to kiss her.
Hold on, I'm not.
She pushed him out forward and say, "Kiss me," and it's quiet.
Forget the kiss part. I'm talking about what was revealed after.
I cannot forget the kiss part. The kiss part is the egregious action. Okay, how could forget the kiss part? The kiss part is the center of all this.
Well, you have to take in the context of what happened subsequently. That she was happy with it, that they promised to marry one another. All of that came out in video evidence, that they seem to have had a relationship. You understand? All of that came out after. So you can't
So
forget it.
The case was normal. Then.
You just talk about police going there without proper evidence and expecting miracles in court. It's the same thing in this case, except that these people don't make joke when they put you under pressure.
I'm glad that you ain't kissed nobody in that way. That's why I have.
But who tell you? We are celebrating white nights out here in Braga, right? Everybody dressed in white, the whole place in white, decorations in white. Don't ask me what's the basis behind it. I haven't checked it, and maybe you all could Google it. But I'm talking about the streets were filled with people, filled, and entertainment all over. Big stages set up, live shows, you name it, they had it out here. People on the streets, food, vending, you name it, they had it here over this last weekend. Hundreds of thousands of people all over. And if you Google it, you'll see the images. I shared some things on Facebook. And not one incident, not one single incident reported and that I've seen. And it's just a bunch of people, Portuguese people, Brazilian people, you name it, all different kind of people. I saw all manner of people on the streets. I think I might have been the only Trinidadian. My son and the three of us might have been the only Trinidadians on the street. Because I don't know, he said, as far as he is aware, there's only one other Trinidadian living in Braga here. You understand? So, but it was a beautiful experience. I'm happy that I had it, and I'll try to get another experience before I return to.
Have you sampled the local delicacies?
Yeah. Why not?
Oh my God, he said that with such tone.
What tone you talking about? I said slowly and in pure English.
Even Steve recognized it.
Do you have newspapers? Do you have newspapers? I say the same tone.
Oh, Richard, my question is for you.
No, I do it.
So you get a yes or you get a no?
21 minutes moving up to 7 o'clock. Let's start with the Aki Guardian for today. September 11th, 2023. Gonzalez finds water disruptions curious, says sabotage is possible. Contractor killed for refusing to pay $20,000 tax. Chief fire officer says fatal Santa Cruz base could have been prevented. Magnitude 5.1 earthquake recorded in TNT. Vandals smash Williamsville Hindu temple. Cabinet goes on a 3-day working retreat. And vendor ordered to stop abusing Archbishop Gordon. Let's move to the news day now. Off-duty cops fend off bandits. Cops who lost limb in accident back on beat. Cabinet goes on retreat after opening of Parliament today. Coast Guard officer drowns at Las Cuevas. U.S. Southern Command Deputy Director vows to keep helping TNT. Karen East MP makes a call for nurses. Maraj and Rambali remain at helm of Mahasabha. And TTRNA, the Trinidad Registered Nurses Association, takes Education Ministry to court over nursing schools. Let's move to the Express now for today. Vandals break into temple. Road Warriors, a Justin Garcia goal in the 71st minute gave Trinidad Tobago a come from behind win on the road against El Salvador in their second Group A match, and also second consecutive win. Supermarket boss, Tobago stocks depleting, so it's gone from depleting now to shoot for shortage. And his name is Kurt Warner. Nikon says plant for the operational. The Express is a strange.
There's a new supermarket boss, Paul.
What?
Did you say supermarket boss?
Tobago Pennywise managing director. Yeah. So
okay.
That's the context of the statement.
Mm-hmm.
So those are trending stories in your Express, Guardian, and Newsday for today, September 11th, 2023.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we are focused on the cabinet retreat today. Today till Wednesday. It's coming after the opening of the Parliament. They will go into retreat for until Wednesday, and our question this morning is: do you expect a reshuffle? Is that it, Paul?
We change the question. Do you think there should be a reshuffle of the cabinet?
Right. Do you think there should be a reshuffle in the cabinet following the cabinet retreat? All right. That's
yes
the question.
or no. Do you think there should be a reshuffle? Should I ask them which ministry should change first?
Well, you know very well what everybody's gonna say, but I don't think that one is gonna happen, and I don't think that one will make a difference. But that's just my opinion.
I don't think there's going to be any reshuffle, but we're still asking if people think there should be a reshuffle.
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no? Are all the lines operational this morning, Steve?
Si, senor.
Or are we still limping along?
Our lines are open. Call us 222-8255. Toll free North Americans 866-525-1099.
Coming up after the news at 7, we have.
They've had retreats before. Were there any reshuffles out of those retreats?
Yes.
Not necessarily.
We have had
not all the time.
Well, not necessarily this government, this particular iteration. But we have had reshuffles coming out of previous retreats before.
And this one in particular is being asked because there were rumors of a reshuffle, erroneously so. Is it a week ago?
Yes.
Yeah, there was some erroneous fake document being circulated, and the Ministry of Communications had debunked it. People still think, especially now with the reopening of Parliament's fourth session and the cabinet going straight into retreat thereafter, suggestions that there may be some sort of reshuffle. But we're asking not if, but do you think there should be a reshuffle of the cabinet? Yes or no? Coming up after the 7 a.m. news, we have Robert LeHunt live from Washington, D.C., talking about the potential for Trinidad and Tobago and African economic development, and also he's working with the IDB now, the focus on climate change and the impact of climate change on Caribbean economies.
Yeah.
I see that the African Union was given a permanent seat on the G20.
Yeah, finally.
All right. Good morning to Winston Jones saying no to the poll. Clifton Simpson said penny savers, not pennywise. Okay.
Penny savers.
Lester Craigwell, Wendell, you are quite right. Some same pack, no difference. Okay.
That's not answering the poll though, Lester.
Nope. So I'll poll this morning. Do you think
8255, toll free North Americans, 866-525-1099. Our lines are up and running. Ish out in Malik. Morning-ish says
fair, yes. A reshuffle doesn't necessarily mean he has to keep all the senators. He could bring in people and take out people in the Senate. You understand? So he can bring new players into the cabinet.
Yes. Yes.
So do you think there should be a reshuffle of the cabinet? They're meeting in retreat from tonight, I think, from this evening into Wednesday midday at cruising. So do you think there should be a reshuffle of the cabinet? That's our poll this morning. Yay or nay, you are entitled to vote. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. People on YouTube, you can send your votes there. I don't know if the message board is back up. I know we were having some technical difficulties with the message board.
No, it's not.
So YouTube is where you can send your message votes. So you'll have to be on the YouTube platform, and you can send your comments and votes there.
Or you can call us.
Yeah. I was interestingly, I was going through the internet. I was scrolling yesterday and an ad came up for Barbados. And we talk about the Ministry of Digital Transformation here. And Barbados, I think, has a new ID card that they're issuing to seniors in the first regard. And that ID card, they can go on their buses, they can ride buses for free, but buses will now take tap, that you can tap and pay. And so I think from October 1st, they can use their ID cards and just tap.
Wow.
And I'm saying, we have our own ministry and we're not seeing any tangible things coming out yet. Is
Not,
waiting until 2025, the year of the election?
not only a ministry. There has been quite a substantial, I don't know if it's a donation or a loan from, is it CAF to Trinidad and Tobago to aid in the digitization of a lot of the agencies.
CAF to give donations,
but there's a loan. There's a loan. Or it could be IDB, which
but
is
you
also
could have seen that 2 years ago, Paul.
I know.
That's a statement you could have said 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, and you haven't seen the real evolution of this Ministry of Digitization on the ground.
2 years ago, the Minister of Finance said by the end of this year, you'd have electronic IDs. 2 years ago, I listened very carefully to those parts of the budget. That is 2 budgets ago, he said that.
Well, the good thing about it is that he could probably see it again in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
If it goes through, I would say the issue I have with the way we
implement change. We are too
slow. The issue I have with the way we present budgets is that we don't get and I know it's an unlimited amount of time, a synopsis of what was promised the last time and what they actually accomplished for all the money they spent. So we shall see.
And we are one of the richer economies. So you would think we should be implementing things faster, and we don't. It's annoying.
We are great planners and we do great analyses. Implementation, not so much.
Everything centered around helping somebody else, you see.
Like the Minister of Public Utilities is now saying he's going to hold WASA management to account for delayed projects. But when I hear that kind of statement, I say, but you all put the board in place. So if the board is not holding the management accountable for performance, I mean, why are you worrying about the managers? Worry about the board. Because I don't know, the minister is supposed to be micromanaging managers. You understand?
Well, true. That's a valid point.
When I heard that, I said, but you're supposed to manage the board, not the managers. So it's kind of, okay, that's not how it's supposed to work in my head.
Are votes coming in on the comment section of YouTube, Steve?
Bogane says yes. Wayne B says no. 222-8255, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099. Do you think there should be a reshuffle of the cabinet? That's our poll.
That's our poll this morning. It's Monday morning.
Call us, our lines are back up.
There are obviously some critical ministries that I don't know, people have to feel if they're performing, or ministers, if they're performing or not, which would elicit a potential move from one person to the other. I know last time around, if I remember correctly, the move, and I think it was after the election, if I'm not mistaken, it was a bit after the election, you saw some new faces. The Hunt was out before, and Gonzalez was put in public utilities when the Hunt resigned. After the election, Garcia was out and Gatsby Dolly was made an education minister. Randall Mitchell was made Minister of Tourism, right? Not so?
Culture and the arts.
Right. Franklin Khan unfortunately passed away, and Stuart Young was made Minister of Energy. And Fitzgerald Hines was made Minister of National Security. Am I on track so far?
You're good, going good.
So far you're going good.
I'm going down the line.
The new Ministry of Digitization
Bacchus was taken from TSTT and put in charge of that ministry. Donna Cox was moved from communication and put into social development and family services.
Correct.
Nado Brigger was brought in after the election after he won, and he was made Minister of Communication. What else? Am I missing anyone?
Public utilities.
Adrian Leon was put in. Public utility and planning was switched around.
Yeah, public administration. Yeah, planning and
Camille
housing or
Robinson Reedy
security?
just moved from planning and put into housing.
Yeah,
And Penelope Beckles Robinson is moving from housing and put into planning.
that's correct.
Adrian Leon just put into as a minister in the Ministry of
Housing.
Housing. Brian Manning is put as a minister in the Ministry of Finance.
Correct. Foster Cummins was given the new Ministry of
A
Youth.
new Ministry of Creative Youth and National Service. And Foster Cummins is put into that.
Yes.
Fitzgerald Haynes is moved from the Ministry of Youth.
Yes. Go ahead. To national security.
I will catch my breath now. Right? So I think that's it basically.
Alison West was the new Minister of Public Admin.
Yeah, she was a minister in the Ministry of something before.
Yeah.
I think it's finance could be.
Finance, yeah. She was in charge
so
of
those are the changes that have happened in the last couple of years. Right? And communication was put under the office of the Prime Minister. Or was it always there?
Azim Hussain was moved from
how could we forget the most significant move? We forget the most significant move.
Yeah, and Attorney General was moved.
The Attorney General was moved.
Shifted.
Shall we say laterally? Was that a lateral move?
He was shifted.
He was shifted. I think shifted is the appropriate is the diplomatic word. From the Attorney General to Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, and Reginald Amo was brought in as Attorney General.
Yes.
So do we forget the most significant one, the AG?
Yeah, I was just waiting to see.
So those are the changes that have taken place over the last 7 or so years in Dr. Rowley's 2 administrations. 2015 to 2020 and 2020 to 2023.
All right, our morning poll. Do you think there should be a reshuffle of the cabinet? Win B says no. Alistair Hart says yes. Ronnie says yes. Lorna, morning Carly, and a special good morning. Indy, morning to you guys. Yes.
And you see, the media in Trinidad and Tobago, when a minister says, I'm going to hold the managers to account, you don't ask a question, is that your role? You understand? Is that actually your role, minister? Or is your role to hold the board to account? Is there still an executive director at WASA?
I don't know. You don't even hear about who's at the head of WASA. Isn't it some?
I know somebody had resigned and they put somebody new because the person, something with some confusion, and they moved the person who was the executive director or the executive chairman, sorry. If there's an executive chairman, the chairman has managerial role, and the minister can hold the executive chairman to account. But I don't know that the minister is supposed to be holding managers to account.
Yeah.
If there's a board in place, the government appoints the board, and the line minister holds the board to account for championing government policy. You understand? Yeah. And the board holds the management to account.
But maybe
in the public sector, in the private sector, it could be different.
Maybe the media has misquoted him.
All the media?
Well, we could always find out if he actually said
that is the thing. But the only thing that will explain that logically if the media misquoted him. But if he said he's holding the management to account. Maybe he used the term loosely.
Yeah, maybe he means the board because the board is part of management.
The board is part of governance.
Governance, management, same thing.
No, it's 2 different things.
Ronnie Voisin says yes to the poll. And Lorna Kalu Singh.
Yes, I do it already. Ms. Maloney says yes.
You said Lorna Kalu Singh. I can't remember you saying that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Another hot day yesterday. Oh, jeez.
Yes, it was a scorcher.
Woo. Let me tell you something.
Says yes.
Yesterday was another scorcher. I registered 35 in the car, but I guess it'll be probably 34 officially or something like that. But let me tell you, it was almost impossible to breathe when you went outside.
Was that hot?
Getting from the house to the car is a whole. And I saw a guy running down the bus route at 2 in the afternoon yesterday.
Crazy.
And I'm saying, partner, you want to get heat stroke of it.
The bright side about it is that we have no Sahara dust.
Tabanka.
No, you look like an athlete, to be very honest. It's only when you get to Tabanka, you run on the bus route in the hot sun.
You know how people running the streets at Tabanka?
Yeah, where your mind going, first of all. Any trauma at all is Tabanka. I wonder why. Any sort of the display of some sort of erratic behavior, you call it, you feel it had to be Tabanka.
It's exactly that.
Why you feel it had to be Tabanka?
It's exactly that.
Not everybody going to Tabanka. Not everybody is present Tabanka the same way.
Yeah, what to do? You stop a day and chat with some of them people.
Have you?
Alam says yes.
I know a few of them.
When you get Tabanka, you run on the bus route in the hot sun?
I jump on a plane.
Well,
So you're on a plane recently. That's where you're Tabanka?
HS Wilson says yes, but sadly it wouldn't make a difference. And Helen Prescott also says yes to the poll. Oh, look at continue with your chit chat about Tabanka.
So you just jump on a
You ever
plane.
get to Tabanka?
Huh?
You ever get to Tabanka?
I don't know. Maybe, I guess. Long
What did you
time
do?
ago.
You started to run or exercise or something, or do more or write more plays?
He wrote Mary Could Dance.
No. Tabanka is transitory.
Is it? Not for some
Yes.
people, you know.
Well, it should be transitory for most people.
It should be, but for a lot of people, it's a permanent state of affairs, you know.
Well, hopefully a minority of people.
For some people, unfortunately, it gets deadly.
Yep.
Not everyone handles it the same way.
Better they go and run but the bus route 2 o'clock in the day.
Particularly men. Men could give it, but they can't take it at all.
Well, Carl M. Jack saying, blessed morning. It's 42 degrees in Baghdad today.
Wow.
That's hot. That is hot.
Yes, go outside with that?
Huh?
Yes, go outside and think of that? Or you stay inside until the night? Because I presume with that, the night hot too.
Last night was warm.
The night only going down to about 35 when it's 42. That is some crazy weather. And what's happening with Hurricane Lee? Is it still a hurricane?
Yep. Hurricane 3.
Yes, which means it's dissipating.
Yeah, but it's saying it could intensify as well as it turns right and headed up north. All right.
So a question this morning.
Do you think there should be a reshuffle of the cabinet? Helen Prescott says yes. H.S. Wilson says yes. Kenny in Harlem says, I say yes to the poll.
I
Miss
said all of
Ingrid.
those already. You know.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I said all of those votes already. Interesting bit of trivia. Do you know that packages of 800 US and less in terms of value don't incur custom duties entering into the United States, which is how Shein and Temu have become such vast enterprises into the US in terms of, well, Shein is particularly clothes, which a lot of Trinidadians and Begonians use. Well, globally, I think a lot of people shop on Shein. But lots of Trinidadians shop on Shein and then resell. And some just shop, period.
I'm seeing so many influencers pushing Temu now too.
Yeah. So yeah, plenty influencers pushing Temu. And that's how they get in. They account, those two companies, Shein and Temu, account for nearly 30% of all packages coming into the US of 800 US and less, which don't incur customs duties. Isn't that amazing?
But it's splitting it up.
30%.
If that's the business model, then they make sure it don't go above that.
Yep. And they've had massive growth. That's Temu's under some fire for some of their, some of the sellers on their platform.
The quality of stuff.
Well, quality, some of the sellers, of course, they say they're just a platform like Amazon. But Yeah, by the quality and labor issues and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. A lot of influencers. They have quite a few influencers who are celebrating Timu now. Well, I got this in Timu, etc.
Did you all get the vote of Julia S. Batiste? She said yes.
No, I didn't get that vote.
Yeah. And Carl Jack says most of the day stays inside. Nighttime is about 33 to 35, which is what Paul kind of hinted at.
Yeah, it can't go down much lower than that.
Mm-hmm. All right, I get another little hint here, boy, about another reshuffle, boy. I got a little hint there, boy. Richie. Well,
is this a good source?
Eh? Normally it is.
Are they saying that a reshuffle is going to happen?
Not for that place we talking about, for the clingers.
For the Klingons.
I don't understand.
Oh God, Richard, you're slow sometimes, huh?
You mean the senators?
The clingers.
All right, gentlemen, we got to run into our news. Let's get into it. Evie is in.
No comment.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
The fourth session of the 12th Republican Parliament will be officially launched today at 1:30 p.m. Cabinet to go on a 2-day retreat after Parliament's opening today, or Cabinet rather. TTPS continues probe into kidnapping and subsequent release of Maraval mother and daughter, and Moroccan villages cut off as deadly earthquakes wipes out roads. Details in a moment. This is news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintil-Bab. Good morning. The fourth session of the 12th Republican Parliament will be officially launched today at 1:30 p.m. with a ceremonial opening and joint sitting of both the Senate and House of Representatives. The final House of Representatives sitting for the third session of Parliament took place on Friday and was prorogued at midnight. Her Excellency President Christine Kangulu will address the joint sitting and expect the guard outside the Red House. In this session, government is expected to bring a new bill to Parliament, which will secure the rights of all citizens and take into account the views of key stakeholders and experts, including criminologists, according to the government. In July 2022, the government unsuccessfully attempted to extend the life of the bail bill. It allowed the courts to deny bail for 120 days to people with previous convictions on serious crimes who were charged with offenses under the law pertaining to firearms, gangs, sexual offenses, among others. At the time, then acting Police Commissioner McDonald Jacobs signaled his support for the bail bill, saying that it was needed as the police sought to get a handle on the crime situation. But it was defeated due to a lack of support from some independent senators and all opposition senators. Attorney General Reginald Armour subsequently said that he would have greater consultation on the new bill, including the independents. Amid rising crime in July, Commissioner of Police Earl Haywood Christopher said the state of affairs warranted the consideration of innovative and unprecedented legislative interventions to deal with firearm possession and violent crime. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley will lead government ministers in a working cabinet retreat today. Yesterday, the office of the Prime Minister, in a message on his Facebook page, indicated that a cabinet working retreat is set to begin from today. According to the brief statement from the office of the Prime Minister, cabinet will start a working retreat at Cruisin' Shakaramas from today after the ceremonial opening. The statement said the retreat begins on Monday evening and concludes at midday on Wednesday. The opposition is asking the Commissioner of Police to consider the granting of legal firearms to registered farmers to help guard against predial larceny. It's an appeal coming from Member of Parliament for Couva North, Ravi Ratiram, while speaking during a news briefing held at the office of the Leader of the Opposition, Charles Street, Port of Spain, on Sunday. The UNC is also interested in the request covering fishermen as well. Mr. Ratiram was also in support of both farmers and fisherfolk being exposed to the necessary training for them to be properly certified to be able to obtain a legal firearm. He said the party is interested in the request for fishermen. A woman and her daughter, kidnapped around 3 a.m. on September 8th, is still engaging the attention of the police as investigations into the matter are being conducted by the Anti-Kidnapping Unit and officers of the Western Division. Both mother and daughter have been reunited with family members and are in good health. They are assisting police with the investigation into their kidnapping. The 3 vehicles, which were taken from their Maraval residence, remain outstanding. Anyone with information that could lead to the arrest of the perpetrators of the crime can call 999-555-911 or call 800-TIPS or any police station. Extortion demands and threats led to the shooting death of contractor Kevin Baker on August 29th behind Building 8 in Maloney. According to police reports, around 1:10 p.m. on August 29th, Baker was shot dead behind Building 8 by 3 men in dark clothing, all wearing masks, 2 armed with rifles and 1 with a handgun. The gunmen ambushed Baker and opened fire on him before running off. Crime scene investigators recovered 19 spent 5.56 millimeter shells, 24 spent 9 millimeter shells, and 3 5.56 millimeter rounds of ammunition at the scene. Police sources said that the tax was a $20,000 extortion fee demanded from Baker, and when he didn't pay up, his murder was ordered from behind bars. Investigators believe the father of 4 was targeted because he brazenly refused to give in to the repeated demands from criminals. The contract was scheduled to be completed within 14 days. Police are said to be conducting investigations into the extortion racket and murder. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Further afield, the number of people killed in Friday's powerful earthquake in Morocco has now risen to 2,497, according to the Interior Ministry. Rescuers have been using their bare hands to dig for survivors. Heavy lifting equipment cannot get through roads blocked by boulders to reach remote villages near the epicenter in the Altas Mountains. Many lie in ruins, with local people desperately awaiting aid. The Moroccan government says it has accepted aid from 4 countries so far: Britain, Spain, Qatar, and the UAE. Friday's earthquake, the country's deadliest in 60 years, struck below villages in the high Altas Mountains south of Marrakesh. Well, finally, here is weather news for the period today until midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, predominantly hot, sunny, and slightly hazy conditions are expected, despite a few showers at times. There's also a medium chance of the isolated afternoon heavy shower or thunderstorm favoring hilly and western areas of Trinidad. Tonight will be fair. Sahara dust is present in light concentrations. Gusty winds and street or flash flooding may occur near heavy showers and thunderstorms, so please be careful. Look out for another warm day today. Temperature high of 34 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 33 degrees Celsius at Crown Point in Tobago. It is presently 29 degrees Celsius at both localities. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock, the 4th session of the 12th Republican Parliament will be officially launched today at 1:30 p.m. Cabinet to go on a 2-day retreat after Parliament's opening today. TTPS continues probe into kidnapping and subsequent release of Maraval mother and daughter, and Moroccan villages cut off as deadly earthquake wipes out roads. I'm Avril Sentel-Bab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon today, and coming up this morning at 8 o'clock, look out for a news update. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Alrighty, thank you, Avi, for our major news. As she said, you can join us at 8 o'clock for a news brief. Quickly, let's take a look at what's happening traffic-wise. Getting on the Valencia stretch as you head northbound. You got some traffic going through Santa Rosa. Also got some traffic there for you. Let's see. Churchill Roosevelt Highway approaching, after you pass to Mpuna, heading to O'Mara. O'Mara Road is heavy as well. You got some traffic. There's a serious accident at the Mauska lights. Yeah, blocking the intersection for sure. But after that, it's clear until Piarco, and then Piarco straight towards UE, then Curep into Port of Spain. All right, Trin City Central Road is also heavy. Eastern Main Road from Arima Old Road, usual spots, even taking the side streets by Tacrigo, like Richard Street and Back Street and so on. You've got some traffic there. McCoy Road, top to bottom. Eastern Main Road priority bus route is also a bit busy. Eastern Main Road again, slow going from St. Joseph towards Mova Junction. All right, Lower Santa Cruz also busy. Let's head down south and see what's happening there this morning. Let's see. South is lighter than usual. Got some traffic out on the creek. Riverland Road is also lighter than usual. From Freeport to Sugar Corners, not too bad, some volume. But from Charlieville, heading straight towards the interchange, traffic straight into Port of Spain. Lady Young Road, out of Maraval, from Mocha, you're going to get from the Pillars, you're going to get it. Diego Martin as well. And Caroni from Chin Chin Road, straight towards Curep. You've got some traffic there. All right, just a reminder, that accident by Mauska lights right at the intersection is causing some issues. Okay, all right, let's get back into the show. See if we got any more votes. No, that's it. Yeah, that's it, guys.
All right. No, we don't have any more. Of course, this morning we asked, do you think there should be a reshuffle of the cabinet? Of course, they're going into retreat today after the opening of Parliament until Wednesday at cruising in Carenage. And our pollsters this morning said 10 people said yes, there should be a retreat, and 2
A reshuffle.
2 said no. 10 said yes, there should be a reshuffle. 2 said no.
Well, I got 11-3. So
You got 11-3?
Yeah.
Right. I may have missed a vote each. All right. I may have missed a vote each. So I'll go with 11-3. All right.
I actually don't think there'll be any reshuffle.
Does that also hold for the independent bench? You don't think so either?
7:16 already. Where's the hunt?
Oh, hold on, wait, because somebody sent me an article, apparently it's in today's Express. I gathered that either online or where. It says that the Express understands, this is a story coming out of the Express, that Kangaloo personally telephoned senators who will not be returning and thanked them for serving, saying that she decided to give someone else an opportunity. Those who will not be returning, and I don't know how to get this part, to the independent benches are Dayal Singh, Dionarine, Welch, and Sipasad. Richard's name not there. It is uncertain whether Vera and Thompson are among those who were asked or those who were asked to, and the article ends there. I don't know. The person sent me the entire article. I don't know if anybody has the entire article. But it just means that our boy, our colleague, our doctor, our co-host, our boss, sometimes he real bossy too, might actually still be on an independent bench. He can't say anything, folks. So don't, because he's a man of integrity, he cannot say anything. So don't prompt him.
Just look at his face and try to read it.
Yeah, just look at his face and try to figure out if he got that call or he didn't get that call.
We have to look at that face.
He come off the camera.
Oh, that's the best thing Paul has done for the whole morning.
Come off here. He like to pat, like that, as he was saying earlier on, man like to give horn but they can't take. He like to give fatigue but he can't take. And Richard?
Good morning. I'm trying. Robert Lahunt is in the room, but I'm not getting him in at all for some reason. I don't know why this thing keeps doing that.
Robert Lahunt going back in the Senate too? We talking Senate talk now.
Just say a quick prayer, Paul.
The amount of prayers he will be saying over the last few days. You feel it? Yeah? Boy, let me tell you something. Paul, you know I'm a supporter of you when it comes to the Senate.
Right. Good morning, Robert Lahunt.
Hey, hi, good morning, Paul. How are you?
Thank you for coming in at that time. It's very timely.
Yeah.
Richard, you ain't how the two of them greeting one another, Robert and Paul. You ain't hearing them?
I hear it very clearly.
Senate people now. People from the Senate now.
Yeah.
Hold on now, Wendell. Morning, Rob.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Khan. How are you, sir? Good morning,
Wendell. How are you going?
I've never called him anything else but Mr. Lahunt. Good morning, Mr. Lahunt.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Lahunt.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's jump straight into the meat of the matter and not deviate from the prescribed conversation course this morning. Let's start with, of course, recently.
What was all this? What was this course about?
I wasn't hearing clearly, so I can't say.
Oh, right. Okay, then.
We were talking Senate talk, Mr. Lahunt. Talks about the Senate, of what you will all be too familiar with.
Oh, okay then. Well, Paul, I hope, I don't know what was the latest, but I do hope that, we would still be getting your expert and your sage counsel from the Senate benches later today. I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, said like
so Robert is in Washington. Robert, let's start with the recent visit of the Ashanti King and the delegation from Africa that visited Trinidad and Tobago, which at emancipation celebrations. Being someone who's worked and has close ties to the continent, what do you think is the significance of that visit culturally and economically?
Well, first to begin, I think that the visit of the Ashanti was I participated in a number of the functions, and I think it was well received by him. Having had some time to speak to him directly, I think it was well appreciated, and well appreciated by a number of the people who came. I think the visit had benefits on both sides. I think a lot of people in his delegation, starting there, who were not 100% familiar with Trinidad, and they were able to recognize and experience the similarities and the connections to the people and to the place of Trinidad and Tobago. So from that perspective, it was well received from their side. From our side, I think, whether a big part of the descendants of Trinidad and Tobago originated or came from Ghana or West Africa, I think a lot of people from Trinidad and Tobago did not recognize, when you listen to our history, or you read our history, you only hear about us coming across on the slave trade and the ship. And a lot of times our life starts from that perspective, we being descendants of slaves. I think it was important, and we have heard, or some of us might have heard about the Ashanti Kingdom, but we know about monarchies around the world. We know, of course, we all know about our king and our queen. We were part of the British system. I think it was important to a number of people of African descent for them to understand part of their history, which is your history, that, you know, they do part of where they came from. You do have people like kings, like the Ashanti, you have kingdoms, you have people who, so from that perspective, it was important for Trinidadians of Africa.
Are you surprised that there's still so much ignorance, and I'm not saying ignorance in a pejorative term, but ignorance in terms of a lack of knowledge about African ancestry and links to Trinidad and Tobago past the atrocities of slavery, because a lot of emphasis is continuously placed on the atrocities of slavery, rightly so in many contexts, but about the rich and noble heritage that has come out of Africa.
Yes, I mean, I think it is. I am still surprised, but again, it is at all levels. And again, a lot of people don't. It is just part of. I think the connection, the umbilical cord was severely cut. There was no connection back to Africa, and I mean, Trinidad, people of African descent in the region lost all connections. If you recognize a lot of the other races, I mean, via movies, via heritage, via people going backward and forward. I mean, when I grew up, for example, I grew up recognizing that you could have gone to an Indian movie on cinema, right? From since I was small. And that connection of movies, for example, allowed people to understand it or continue to have a connection to their Indian heritage and understand what happens with the Dori, and even a lot of our Trinidadians who look at the Indian movies when we were small were then able to understand the Indian culture. Those types of connections were not kept with Africa. And therefore, to an extent, no, I'm not surprised. It's unfortunate, but I'm not surprised. That is just, it is what it is. So I think this was an important visit from that perspective, to build back that bridge. I also think it's also important from an economic perspective, because, you know, I mean, as I have said a lot of times, I think Africa or Africa is the future and is the new frontier for business and business activity.
Mr. Laurent, who, you know, I've had an interest in Africa, Ghana in particular, largely because of you introducing me to that part of the world, and of course we had a delegation went there twice. Who were some of the businessmen who came to Trinidad with the Asante King, and in terms of the opportunities that would present itself to people like us?
Well, there were lots of, I mean, I know for sure there were lots of people some people in the financial sector who had projects and they were looking to seek financing. So there were lots of connections with some of the banks to discuss certain projects. There was, of course, Mr. Yufi Grant, who was the head of Ghana Investment Promotions. There was Miss I think the lady name is Miss Asari, who was also one of the leading people from the government perspective.
And so Mr. Zwenis was also here, Charles Zwenis.
Charles Zwenis. There was a large delegation coming from Republic Bank in Ghana, and Mr. Zwenis and the new chairman of Republic Bank and a lot of the board of directors of Republic Bank in Ghana. And there were actually a lot of other people in other industries. A lot of small business people were also here exploring the particular landscape. And they had also some very interesting conversations, you know. I mean, they went, a lot of the delegations met with the Minister of Trade. They visited Angostura, which again was a very enlightening visit. I missed that visit, but I understood there were lots of connections made there during that visit for future export of our products. And by and large, I mean, based on the interviews given, the visit was deemed a success by all.
What needs to happen? Because I've heard about delegations between Trinidad and Tobago and various African countries, including Ghana, in the past. I know we've had expertise going to, is it Nigeria's developing oil regime and stuff like that. But we never seem to, maybe it's happening, I don't know, see it materialize into tangible trade and other types of benefits. What needs to happen now from the Trinidad and Tobago side to maximize the potential of these linkages?
Well, ironically, I mean, Paul, I'm not sure that one of the things that this is a build-up of things that have been happening. September the 7th was CARICOM African Day. That was September the 7th. So that's a day where the whole link between CARICOM and Africa itself, and that bringing together of the two areas was also celebrated. So we are speaking at a very opportune time. Just was it 3 days past the celebration of that particular day. But yes, at the end of the day, a lot of what needs to happen is private sector on both sides. I mean, governments could only provide the opportunity for things. Government could also have these trade missions, and governments and the Minister of Trade could visit to Ghana, which I understand that a visit is being planned to take a delegation of business. There have also been a lot of business people who have also visited Ghana via Republic Bank connections. But this is really an opportunity for business, for business connections and private sectors to get going. I mean, when you look at the African continent is in itself is about 1.4 billion people. And what is important is that over 60% of those people are under the age of 35. And that is the kind of size by 2050, 1 in every 4 people in the world, persons in the world, will be of African descent. So when you're talking about the size of that market and what the African contingent was what they were purporting or what they were saying is that they're looking for partnerships because there are lots of raw material in Africa. There are lots of agricultural products in Africa. Trinidad and Tobago, as a country, a small nation that always punches above its weight, is a nation that is good in manufacturing and the transporting and the turning of raw materials into finished products. And therefore, what they saw was the potential of, on this side, you have someone that is good in manufacturing, and they have a lot of raw materials. So it really is left up to the private sector. And I think to take the plunge, take the challenge, and see how we could set up businesses in Africa, how we could make those types of partnerships so as to allow for greater business. I mean, this is really about business. I know.
Now you said the government's really limited, but the government in terms of trade and industry, and I guess tourism, is critical in facilitating the ease of doing business with these kinds of connections. Do you think we're doing all that we should be doing?
Well, I think there is always room to do. I think we are doing a lot, but I think there's always room to do more. And I will say, I mean, I have privately, I can't take, but I mean, I've attended about 3 or 4 really big meetings with a lot of our big manufacturers of people who are actually coming out to the visit, seriously looking at exploring and setting up and doing business with Africans. So I think from that perspective, it is successful. I know the ministry is also looking, because I think that was also something that was needed. I mean, a lot of times, a lot of governments throughout the world, how they promote trade is via the embassies, and they also have attached to the embassies a particular person, who is responsible for trade and trade promotions, and who has that type of connection with the private sector and is actually working out in the ministry. The US government does it, the UK government, a lot of the Europeans do it. And therefore, I think we are also moving Trinidad. I think they're doing that this year. I heard the Minister of Trade has announced 7 areas that they will be, so 7 embassies that they will be sending someone. They just appointed someone to the United States. So that is another degree of facilitation. But governments could do just that much. It requires the private sector. Yes, they could probably, and some of the requests that were made were some double taxation treaties to be set up. But when Republic Bank, for example, decided to go to Africa in 2010, 2011, it was a business decision. It was a decision driven by you looking at the size of the market, and all that we are now hearing was part of the analysis done way back in 2010. We recognized that the markets, Trinidad as a bank, we needed to grow and operate in the bigger market. We felt that we were a little bit mannish, as you might want to call us, that we felt we had the skills to be able to go international. And we saw the potential of the Ghanaian market, which at the time, as I said, Ghana had 31 million people. And the intention was not just to enter Ghana, but to enter the African market via Ghana. And when you enter that bigger market, you're talking about 1.4 billion people in a free trade zone. West Africa alone, you're talking about over 300 million people. So the potential to be able to apply your trade in those bigger markets, there's a lot of financial incentives. I've said before, I mean, things like air transport will assist, but again,
I'm happy you raised that issue, Mr. Laurent, of air transport, because that would have been my next question to you. In terms of the access to Africa from the Caribbean, it's been very difficult, very tedious. How have we been looking at making it easier for people to get from the Caribbean to Africa? I think we did it once, I think from Barbados, a flight, but I don't think we've had it again since.
Well, again, I mean, you know, I take the view that, yes, we could look to government, but we have to look away from government, because at the end of the day, we have to look to the private sector to take up these challenges and do it. The truth of the matter is, to set up a flight, a daily flight, it's a very expensive thing. When you're setting up a route in discussions with BW or Caribbean Airlines or Peace Air, you need to have a plane. So I mean, it is practical. You could get a plane. It will result in a lot of the savings. With regard to time, a direct flight will take about 7 hours compared to about 24 hours to get there. It will be cheaper. Yes, all of those things are ticks, but you require volume and people. All right. Otherwise, there's a big subsidy that needs to be paid for that flight. And who should pay that subsidy? Should that be the government paying the subsidy to try to set up the route? And when we get the results from Caribbean Airlines and we see that they're losing more money, should the whole of Trinidad and Tobago pay? Or is that something that needs to be set up via charters on a private sector basis? And when the volumes reach the critical mass and could afford a daily flight or a weekly flight, then that's set up. Then that is set up. Because when you look at the numbers, it is a very expensive proposition to subsidize a flight. So yes, it would be nice, but again, I go back to Republic Bank. When they set up or they choose to go, right, it was driven by a business decision. And in spite of the flights being long, I remember doing that flight twice a week, 3 times a week, backward and forward. I mean,
wow,
you know, wow. A lot. But that is what it takes if you want to get something done.
But should the government look at it?
How is Republic Bank doing now in Ghana, though? I know initially they suffered some losses, I think, but has that gotten stable now? Are you aware? I should ask you first of all.
Well, again, I think the first thing again, I mean, when I left in 2017 and they were actually making a profit. So there have been ups and downs. The Ghanaian economy has had changes in their exchange rates. And as a result of that, they have had some challenges. But based on, I think 1 year ago, the subsidiary was the second best subsidiary in Republic Bank. Last year, the profits were affected by some endogenous circumstances. So it goes up and go down. But I think for 1 or 2 years, they have been number one or number two best performing subsidiary in the Republic Bank Group. So by and large, the investment has been successful. I think the next stage, and I mean, I'm not there now, but the objective at the time was Ghana was an entry point. And I think the group needs to start to look and see how do we expand on the African continent. Because again, as I said, you're talking about a large volume of people, much more than we in Trinidad, right here in Trinidad and in the Caribbean region.
Just in terms of scale, I guess the potential is there. Should the government be looking at this? If there's a plan, because Republic Bank is a kind of different case because they have the assets and the capital to do that as a private sector entity, because it's a huge operation. For medium-sized businesses, let's say, I wouldn't say small or micro, for medium-sized businesses wishing to take advantage of that huge market, because I mean, the market is huge. Should the government look at that sort of flight arrangement as an investment with a plan moving forward, because it's an investment in furthering the economic growth of Trinidad and Tobago, essentially, through medium-sized businesses?
Again, it is, as I said, Sparrow said there's very little you could do without money. You can't make love without money. You can't make love on an empty belly. At the end of the day,
hungry belly.
And a hungry belly. It all depends. It comes down to financing. It comes down to, you're right, Paul, that might be an option, but there's a financial number associated with that. I mean, what is the kind of loss that you're talking about? All right. It might be nice to do, but I would think that what needs to happen, and I think it's there, I think the private sector, individuals, needs to get together and do a charter. Let's start with that. Let's start with a charter. Let's start with a charter around one of our festivals, around Carnival, around Emancipation Day. All right. A lot of small business people from Ghana finds themselves here in Emancipation Day, and they do a good trade. All right. And they keep coming every year. And I suppose the reason why they come is because they do good business. So in the same way, we need to take up the challenge and go there and take some of our festivals across there. That's the kind of connection that needs to be started to make. I mean, as you heard, I mean, some people have gone, and I know they're looking at developing Carnival. So those are the types of things and the connections that we need to make. Yes, we could look at the government to do more. The governments could always do more, but governments do not have a bottomless pit of money, and they need to then stretch those resources in a number of different ways. But my message has always been that, the private sector needs to start to look at it and see how we could explore that particular market.
Now, you're the Inter-American Bank Group Executive Director for the Caribbean. I read an article recently in the Barbados Nation where you're quoted as saying the Caribbean as a whole needs about $20 billion to meet its sustainable development goals. And I want to talk a little bit about climate change. Let's talk about Trinidad and Tobago in that context, and how you think the IDB can or is facilitating Trinidad and Tobago, supporting Trinidad and Tobago in that regard. I know there have been some, I don't know if it's loans or investments, some focus on digitization, on modernization of systems, etc. What is the IDB's role in this sort of enterprise? Because we spoke earlier on, and it's something Richard always speaks about the importance of digitization. We have 2 years now going on Ministry of Digitization, but he referenced Barbados being able to seniors being able to tap in a bus now and pay, and and the advantages of a digitized society. We do have to go into that. Is obvious or are obvious.
Well, again, I mean, the IDB is a development bank. It's the largest development bank for Latin America and the Caribbean. And therefore, the IDB is made up of a number of member countries, 5 of them from the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago, together with most of the Latin American countries. And the whole IDB mission is about improving lives. I mean, the IDB has been working in Trinidad and Tobago for a number of years. Thursday, ironically, Uric Bob visited me at my office. And as you would know, Uric Bob was a governor in Trinidad and Tobago. And he went on after leaving here. He was the chief of staff at the IDB about 15 years ago. So we have had a long relationship with the IDB. The IDB has worked in Trinidad and Tobago in building a number of the schools, the secondary schools that you see when that time happened, when we moved into the junior secondary school system. All those schools were built out of loans coming out of the IDB way back then. Today, I know we are working a lot we have just approved a very large loan, one that I'm very familiar with, in the water sector for about 315 million to work in assisting and providing financing to transform that particular sector. We are working with the Ministry of Digitization, we are working with the Ministry of Works, we are working with the Ministry of Energy, and we are exploring a number of projects. We just funded a project, a roadmap on the hydrogen economy, and trying to see how we could guide the Trinidad and Tobago government to get into that industry. But the IDB as a development institution do not only provide financing. The IDB is known as a knowledge bank. And they are an institution, and when there are problems in a particular country, they come in. They also assist the country with technical assistance, getting the best expertise to solve the problem, and then develop a business case, and then they also finance the problem. Hence the reason when I was a minister, I went to them in looking at the water sector, and they came up with a plan at the time to deal with the water situation and also fund the water situation. So that's the kind of relationship that the IDB works. We are doing a lot of job work now with the Ministry of Digitization and funding their transition. Now, one thing I do know about digitization, there's a lot of work up front that needs to be put in place. A lot of times you think nothing is happening, but there's a lot of investment that needs to happen up front. And then, because you have to get it right at the end, I spent some time after leaving government with Answer Bank in setting them up. And I could tell you, it took about a year and a half before we were able to build out the required applications. When you see an application, you think, well, all right, it's easy and it makes life very simple. But there's a process about almost 2 years before that happens. So a lot of work has been done in the back with the Ministry of Digitization, which is an important initiative in Trinidad and Tobago. I say the region needs to look at digitization because we need to get government operating more efficiently. And digitization provides that process or gives that platform for that to happen. All right. So we are doing a lot of work in the country with a number of different ministries. Ministry of Education, I know we are also in high-end discussions with them at present in assisting them in their TechVoc program and how we could improve that program. So we are doing a lot of work. I'm working with a lot of the ministers now in Trinidad and Tobago in trying to advance the whole development initiative.
I know you said that as Paul referenced, the US $20 billion that the region needs to meet the sustainable goals. And you also talked a lot about private investment, the private sector having to be more involved. Is it that the private sector in the Caribbean is too conservative in your mind or in your sense of it?
Well, boy, listen to me. The amount of money that the region requires, as you heard, about $20 billion just by 2030 to deal with our sustainable development goals. And what is important from that statement, if you're in that particular article I mentioned, if, for example, that money is not spent, the impact by 2050 of doing nothing is going to be also very tremendous, a high amount of money that is going to impact. We all know this region, for example, as an issue as it relates to climate. I mean, I'm sure you could feel it every day. We are getting hotter. Every day is getting hotter and hotter. And that's not only in Trinidad and Tobago, it's throughout the world. And that is a significant. So in addition to that 20 billion that you are talking about that is required for us to meet sustainable development goals, there's a significant investment that is also required in meeting our climate and building out new resilient infrastructure for the region to deal with climate. I mean, I saw the G7 just signed off, and they were talking about, I think I wrote it down, about 5.9 trillion is needed by 2030 in developing countries, of which the region is one of them. So there's a tremendous amount of money. Listen, the reality is development banks cannot lend that money. Governments can't. So it's a combination of development banks have to find that money to lend, governments have to provide, and private sector also need to mobilize to get involved in dealing with a number of those issues. So yes, private sector needs, and I mean, we're talking about that.
Do you think enough attention is being placed by Trinidad and Tobago on that issue of climate change and the work being done behind the scenes?
I didn't get the question, Paul. Sorry.
Do you think there's enough emphasis being placed on the climate change issues? Because I know some of the European countries have actually taken policy positions that climate change is imminent, what's happening already. They have to invest in mitigation, but they're also using the mitigation to position them in other areas to be economically advantaged. So they're not only looking at it as well, we have to catch up and fix it, but we have to position ourselves based on the potential to do better in other areas also. For example, hydrogen.
Well, I mean, again, that is the climate issue is the elephant in the room, all right? Mia Motley has been bringing that to the attention of the world a lot, especially the Caribbean plights. Because when you talk about that amount of money that is coming, you're talking about that climate issue, and it's meeting a lot of the Caribbean countries or the countries in the region at a time when we have significant levels of debt, and also at a time when our own development, just to meet our sustainable development goals, there's still a lot of poverty in our region. So there is a lot of money to be spent in dealing with issues that we have undone, that needs to be fixed, and then there are the new issues that are coming on top of it. And the region has been affected for a long time by exactly the fact that we have been affected by a lot of natural disasters. Over 65%, what people are not, over 65% of the major natural disasters that have hit the world for small islands since 1960 has hit us in the Caribbean. So we have been spending a lot of money in building back ourselves as a region based on the effects of climate. So we have been having hurricanes in our region for a long time. It's just now getting worse. And therefore, one of the big issues that is up for conversation is who needs to pay or who should be paying to help those issues. We have not caused these climate issues. We have not been part of, we have not been big polluters of the world that is causing this. And therefore, there's a lot of discussions as to how we should be able to get the type of financing and get to be able to allow us to meet some of these challenges. So from that perspective, we need to mobilize and we need to continue to lobby as to how we are going to get the type of money to deal with some of the climate challenges. Yes, we do need to use some other measures, mitigation type measures, to help us get into new types of industries in the region. We need to look at things like hydrogen, and we need to look at wind and solar and all of those types of new type of ways of generating energy. And I think, as I said, I know we have been financing at the IDB, us looking at deeper at the hydrogen economy in Trinidad and Tobago. But the transition for countries like Trinidad and Tobago, where we have been very much heavy into hydrocarbon type industries, and we now have to transition, that in itself is a challenge to a number of countries in the region, because a lot of people have already invested in long-term assets, right? And therefore, how are you going to deal with what the new word is stranded assets? It's also a new challenge. So there are lots of challenges into the region, and it requires a lot of thinking, it requires a lot of activities, but it is something that we do need to face.
And, I asked you about whether you felt that the businesses in the Caribbean were too conservative, because oftentimes, you hear of all of these trade fairs, you hear of the digitization thrust, and the private sector, of course, is part of that. And I think thanks to COVID, a lot of them COVID was a catalyst for, I think, a lot of companies pushing more in that direction than they would have if there was not COVID, in terms of getting more into the online sphere, taking payments online, etc., etc. I think COVID was the main driver of that, because businesses have to survive and they adapt. And that was an adaptation to that particular circumstance. But overall, in terms of, because you often get the sense that businesses, speaking from a Trinidad and Tobago context, are very conservative about how they invest and where they invest. And I know governments have often said that they are risk averse in terms of being entrepreneurial enough to move us forward, especially in terms of the diversification from the energy economy, which we seem to be, very anchored in. And I get it, that it's still a big part of what Trinidad and Tobago is, but we've been talking about diversification since all of us here were in primary school. And have we really made the strides necessary?
Well, I do hear you, that I think, again, I've worked in the banking sector for a number of years, and you're right, yes, I think you could, if the Trinidad business, a big part of the Trinidad business community has stayed very safely into areas of distribution. There have been some, the Essentials, the Associated Brands of the world, who have actually gone out and taken a lot of, there are companies in Trinidad who have actually set up plants in Malta and around the world and are actually operating. So there have been some successes from that perspective. But yes, I do agree that I think there are a number of areas of opportunities that our business community needs to start to look at and get involved. I think there is a significant opportunities in areas of agriculture that I feel we could spend some more business entrepreneurial money and skills in. And there are lots of technology surrounding agriculture that could make agriculture very viable for people to want to do, but it requires some new thinking and requires.
But my understanding is that the Ministry of Youth and National Service is doing that.
Oh, beg pardon?
My understanding is that the Ministry of Youth and National Service through Foster Cummings is doing a bit of that and introducing younger people to agriculture.
Yes, and I think that's a great initiative. So, I mean, I think more could be done from the private sector. So the government is pushing people in that regard, but we were talking about the private sector business getting more involved in it. And I think, yes, a lot of our traditional business people need to start to see agriculture as a viable alternative. All right. But I mean, I think a lot of it comes back to again, governments could do just as much. I mean, we talked about agriculture just now, and we talked to the Ministry of Youth, and they are doing their part. But I think that spirit of entrepreneurship and wanting to do something different and wanting to diversify the economy, I think a lot of the business people need to take that ownership to want to do something to make Trinidad better and get involved and get more involved in other types of industries. So yes, there is room on both sides. I've heard a lot about governments doing the work to try to make the environment more business friendly, all right? But I also believe that once the environment becomes business friendly, you also have to have a spirit, an entrepreneurial spirit for the business people to want to get involved in it also. And there are a number of incentives, you know. I mean, one of the things I'm remembering from my time, if you research the levels of incentives that we have in this country for people to get involved, one day I challenge you to go and look at that. All right, there's almost an incentive for anything, and one asks himself, if you ask yourself, why haven't we been able? Why are people not taking up the incentives? Is another question, which, as I said, I think if we start,
doesn't that come back to an issue of leadership? And I'm not just talking about political leadership. I'm talking about leadership as an issue in small island states, and that issue of motivation and the issue of inspiration in terms, which is a intangible but certainly trackable thing in terms of how people feel and about the respective spaces they live in the Caribbean, and wanting to be an entrepreneur there, less as a survival, but more as an investment into the country. Survival is always important. Businesses have to survive. But that issue of investing in the country, and is the lack of take-up of those incentives, which is what you're suggesting, part of a national psyche that doesn't feel inspired and hopeful in the future? And if that is so, how do you change that?
Well, I mean, you put that on the table, but I also put on the table, isn't that not a function of our comfort level? I don't know. I mean, I hear what you are saying, but I also put on the table, is it a function of our comfort level? Is it a function that the fact that there's life in the region itself? And when you travel and you recognize the level of poverty that you have in a number of Latin American, Caribbean countries, just right our neighbors, you go to some of these countries and you compare them to the region, or you go to Africa and you see poverty, you realize that in a lot of times, a lot of the people in the Caribbean region, we live a very comfortable life, even at our lowest level, the lowest level. When you talk about poverty in those areas, it is serious poverty. So in answering your question, I hear this issue of leadership, and that is always different people have different things that motivates them. All right. And I mean, what motivates you might not be something that motivates me. So leadership is a nebulous conversation that we could talk about, but I also would like to put on the table, is it also part of our own comfort level that we're too comfortable? So we could get into that. I always believe that there is always room for improving the business environment. but there's also an ownership that people need to also want to take. There's also why, I mean, I have always admired when I go to Jamaica, the national pride that Jamaicans have for the little that they have. And people talk about this, whether or not we have that in Trinidad or not. I mean, I'm not going to get into those kind of conversations now, but what it is that happens there that doesn't happen here. To what extent that we live in a polarized society here and we celebrate it as part of our life in Carnival and we talk about it, but to what extent have we dug deep to determine exactly what are some of the undercurrents that we do have in Trinidad that prevents us from operating and building as a society? Those are some conversations over 60 years of independence have passed that I think we have been not having. And therefore, as a result, there's a number of, as I said, still waters run deep in Trinidad and Tobago that we still need to explore for us to be able to build out as a society.
We kind of, I think we're free to come
undercurrents anymore, no?
In our last 2 minutes, Robert, can you give us a sense, because I know you were involved at a high level in Answer Bank, and they have a kind of cashless drive. We spoke about digitization earlier on. You think we're on our way to a cashless society anytime soon?
The idea, the reality is digitization and moving to a cashless society. Whether we want to be on it or not, it's a road, it is coming, it's like a tidal wave, and we better get onto it, all right? I think we are, as a cashless society, we are better than a lot of people, a lot of other countries, but I think there is definitely room for more. I strongly believe in the work that is being done by digitization because, as I said, we need to make our system and our governments a lot more efficient. And to me, when you are running a government or you're running a country and you have variable income, as a business person, the best thing that you could do is to try to be as efficient as you can. And therefore, digitization will provide that initiative. I think digitization will also allow for governments to identify who needs the assistance in Trinidad and Tobago. So that's another area that I think we need to work on, in that, you know, there's a lot of subsidies, there's a lot of but we need to be more targeted in our subsidies, right? And I think the digitization will allow for that to happen. So I think we are on our way. We could always do it a lot faster, all right? And I think based on the work that I know that is happening in the Ministry of Digitization, I think there's a lot around the corner to come very soon, because I know a lot of background work has also been done by the minister, and therefore I think I live in hope.
Robert Lohan, thank you as usual for being with us this morning. It was an interesting conversation and quite a range of issues. Enjoy the weather in DC. It's getting frosty.
Yes, we are getting it's a nice. We are enjoying the last few days of summer. Thanks again. Thanks you guys of all, Wendell, Richard, Paul. Good luck this evening. I don't know. I hope that, as I said, we
will
still be present.
It's a matter of whatever the choice is made.
Well, again, you know, from our perspective, we just want to know that we appreciate your contribution. I always learn, I think people who are giving national service, right, and who are giving back to their community and their country is important, and they don't get enough recognition, and that they don't get enough kudos for that selfless work. So I want to thank you on behalf of, I'm sure, all of Trinidad and Tobago, whether you stay with us or not, for the contribution that you have done in the past, and looking forward to your continued contribution going forward. So with that, Trinidad and Tobago, it's always a pleasure to engage both of you guys and the wider population. Thanks again, and all the best.
Thanks, okay, Mr. Lohan, take care.
Okay, Mr. Lohan.
All right, all the best. All right, gentlemen.
So have a fantastic day. Yeah, have a fantastic day. Whatever you do, remember to smile and laugh. It's great for your health.
All right, folks, have a wonderful day. Remember to let go and let God. Wednesday morning, might be a little late because I'll be in another part of the world. Hopefully, I'll get there in time to log on. Yeah.
All
Take
right.
care.
Have a safe one, gentlemen. All the best to you guys. All right, let's get into 8 o'clock news brief.